welcome to Wine Masterclass number 3 on Champagne. We're here with Marine of Champagne Vincey. Super excited to have her here. I feel like we're hanging out even though we are hundreds of miles apart. But what we went over last class was the 4 ways to judge wine. So how to look at color, aroma, structure, and overall quality. We looked at that 100-point, very American rating system. So up to 15 points for color, up to 25 points for aroma, 25 points for structure, and then the 35 points for overall quality. So we looked at how wines are really judged at overall quality being the most important thing. So we talked about how finish, having a long finish that rests in your palate for a long time is so, so important, that you shouldn't just have the golden color where we go through and we list, is it straw, is it hay, is it amber, where we talk about aroma, is it passion fruit, is it apricot, is it white flowers, and then structure, we talked about those 4 corners of our palate, but really that we want it to have steps of complexity, that we want it to have like a heart center to like evoke an emotion, and that we also want it to have that long finish. So that's what we learned last time. We also learned all about Chablis and the 7 or like debatable 8 different Grand Crus of Chablis, and that, you know, the different levels of Chablis. We tried Chablis, just a regular Chablis, and then we talked about Premier Cru and Grand Cru. And actually, we are going to try Grand Cru next. But we talked a little bit about that concept of terroir and really how important terroir is and what Grand Cru was. So it's going to be interesting for you to go through with us a bit more about Grand Cru, and then a bit more just about your champagne, your house, champagne history. We did the first one class on a vintage champagne that was Le Galet, where actually Marine used to work. So she was the one that led the visit there, explained the vines, how to farm them, and then would have people taste 3 different champagnes. So that is what we do together, really. So I lead a wine tourism business where we bring visitors to Champagne. So that's how Marine and I know each other. But let's go through a little bit Champagne Vincey. So let's see. So you have about 7 hectares of vines, which translates to about 17 acres. You're in Grand Cru villages, mainly of Oger and Mesnil sur Oger.
Yes. Yes, we are.
You have 2 different lines of champagne. One of them is for a cooperative, where you get together with a group of different winemakers and you make one bottle that you all sell together and help with the marketing and the sales and all of that. And then you have another blend that's more high-end, that's Grand Cru, that you're farming organically, biodynamically, and you're waiting for the certificate.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We are. Okay, thank you. So hi, everyone. I'm very glad to do that with you. It's the first time for me. So about the house, yes, we are the 8th generation with my partner in life, Quentin. And so he took over after his father about 10 years ago, and his first aim was very much to change the vineyard's work. So the first response to that was to go organic. And then we wanted to go a bit further about the organic, focusing more about creating more living in the soils, recreating ecosystems around our vineyards, because it's a monoculture. So we had the tendency with years to only focus about that very plant.
Yeah.
Nature works with surroundings, let's say.
Quick question, was your main goal to go organic, not only to treat the vines in a better way and to kind of help the planet, but was it also the goal to get the rootstock to go deeper in the soil, to then have us taste more of the geology of your soil and terroir? Was that like one of the leading reasons why you went organic?
Totally. It's a part as well of this kind of culture, let's say. Problem with herbicides, and when you use pesticides, it's at a moment the plant suffer from a lack of nutriment. So instead of going down the roots, they go like this to stay on the surface, where normally you have less nutriment. And so it's circled like that, and it's hard to get rid of. When your roost goes down, because under the clay surface we have in Champagne, we have, more specifically where we are in La Cote Blanc, a huge chalk on the ground, and it's full of minerals and freshness, and some sapidity, and so you kind of lost this terroir taste, which is very much particular. And so we wanted to go back to this, of course. Yes.
Okay. All right. So in Champagne, there's 17 Grand Cru villages, and Marine, there's 43 Premier Cru. Is that right? 47?
42 or 1, but let's go for 40 something.
42 something. So what that means is that the Grand Cru villages have the best land, the best terroir, the best exposition to the sun. They were rated as producing the best grape. So when we think about like a chef chooses and creates a dish based off the best possible ingredients he can get. I remember a time that I was in France and I went into, Les Avisés, that restaurant there. It's so good. Do you like it?
I love it. It's next to my village, actually.
Oh my God. So that's Jacques Selot's restaurant, who's a really famous champagne grower. But I went in that restaurant one day and I had this amazing potato. And it was just like a roasted potato with salmon. And I was like, how is this potato so good? Tell me your secret. Like, what temp did you cook it at? Did you start it in a pan? Did you then put it in the oven? What temperature? What type of salt? Give me all the secrets. And he was like, Sydney, it has nothing to do with the way that I cooked it. Hey, Clemence, what it's really about is this variety of potato, the quality of potato. So it was a Mona Lisa potato that we don't actually get in the States. But the quality of that original ingredient for a chef is so important to make good food. And I think what's important for us to learn today and for you to teach us is that the quality of a grape for a winemaker is also so important. So for people that are just general wine drinkers, like a thing for them to ask when they go and visit a winery or when they're drinking wine is, how old are your vines? How do you farm them? And what's the quality of them? So what we know when we're talking to you, you're in a Grand Cru village. So you're one of these 17 best villages in all of Champagne, where we know that the champagne made from those villages is going to be superior. So you have such amazing luck to be in that village and to have the resource just of that earth and that geology of soil to produce a grape to make in your champagne.
Yes, it is. It's crazy how lucky we feel about it. And we also have satellites vines, let's say, out of the Grand Cru region. And so it's not that it will be less good, though. It will be totally different. The terroir will be different. Here, the sea, the ancient prehistorical sea of Champagne, took such a long time ago, about 70 million years ago. And so the erosion then increased and increased, and so we have the chalk on the surface very, very high, let's say. So we have a poor soil in surface, and we dig about 50 centimeters. I'm sorry for the humidity. Directly, you have walls of chalks. So
So what you're saying is there's this much or further of actual chalk in the soil that you could take out, you could write on a chalkboard with, that the vine roots are actually penetrating in that and going inside of them to grow. So then they're surrounded by this like white chalky material that actually we taste in your champagne.
Yes, it is. Yes, totally. Plus that, of course, like we said earlier, you have to go with very natural as possible farming to express naturally the plants.
Yeah. So a couple quick questions, and then I want you to go into a little bit more specifics about your champagne, but just like general stuff for people that don't know that much about champagne, to get a better idea about what to look for in a store, what to look for, like how to buy a champagne, what kind of champagne to maybe bring to a picnic, what kind of champagne to bring to like a party with friends or a wedding. So to go through some of that. So my first question is, what do you look for in a champagne when you are buying it or drinking it? Like, what are some of the characteristics that you think make a good champagne?
When I'm buying a bottle of champagne, first of all, I will looking for a clean farming. I won't searching for a specific label, for example. Here we had the chance to be directly at the source, so we know people and how they were the vines.
Yeah.
But of course, consumers, it's very important to have a label behind it. Then after, I will question myself about who I will drink the champagne with, depending on the weather it is. If it's a warm summer day and I will go for a picnic, maybe I will go for a blanc de blanc, because the Chardonnay, which is the only white variety in Champagne, is very fresh compared to the two red grapes, which are Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will focus about who I'm going to drink with, the moment, and if I will pair food or not with.
Yeah, cool. So what we can remember is Blanc de Blanc, or if we can find 100% Chardonnay champagne, that would be preferable to drink that in the summer. It's light, it's fresh, it's white flowers, it's citrus, it's lemon peel. It's just like easy and fun. So as the temperatures increase right now, and we're going towards summer, it's perfect if we can find it to have a Blanc de Blanc.
Yes, it is. Yes, totally. And then depending on your taste as well.
Rosé or Blanc de Blanc. So the different types of champagne. So there's 3 main grapes that are blended in. So we can either have 100% Chardonnay, 100% Pinot Noir, 100% Pinot Meunier, or 33% of each grape. What Marine makes is 100% Chardonnay, and that is what's called the Blanc de Blanc. The Blanc de Noir is 100% Pinot Noir. So she'll show it to you there. You can kind of see where it says, does it say Blanc de Blanc?
Alors, it doesn't say Blanc de Blanc because we just, as it's a terroir champagne, 100% from our village, Oger, we just put Chardonnay d'Oger. That's simple.
Okay, so
Blanc de Blanc
of the village of Oger.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right.
But Blanc de Blanc is very easy to remember. It's white from white.
White from white, right. So my other question is, what do you like in a champagne? Like, what type of bubble do you prefer? Do you like structure? Do you prefer 100% Chardonnay? I know that's what you make, but are there certain days when you don't? Like, are you looking for balance? Are you looking for what type of bubble feel in your mouth? What type of color do you like?
Yeah, alors, I'd rather go for white, but depending on, I never say no to a rosé either. I will go for thin bubble, because for me, thin bubble means that the aging in bottles, so in the cellar before, is longer. With time, we do age our bottle, lay down like this before to release it. In our house, it's at least 5 years, but it depends. It can be from 15 months to more, depending if you're making 100% from a year vintage champagne or blending champagne. If you have a very young champagne, the bubble will have the tendency to be too much present. And in my opinion, the gas will have as well the tendency to hide the aromas a bit too much. Right. So I rather have a long aging to have thinner bubble.
Yeah.
Then I will looking for balance. For me, it's the most important things to go with. Depending if you like more oxidation, more freshness, the importance is to have a bit of everything to make a good champagne, let's say.
And I feel like that's something that the French are so good at, like achieving that balance and making balance be such an important aspect in the overall quality of a wine.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. It's the winemaker job, let's say. First of all, the grapes will give you everything, but then you have to transform that fruit. And so here where you as well work on the wine though. So it's hard to do. It requires years of experience. And also because every vintage is different, every time you're going to have other factors, you know, so it's hard.
Yeah. Hey, Ashley. Everyone's on. Everyone's joining. Cool. Okay, sounds good. So why don't we open your bottle? We'll just ask quickly, what's the perfect temperature for bubbly? So Sonia, do you mean to serve it? Or what temperature should you age it at home?
Alors, at your home, the best condition, let's say, if you can, it's to go for a wine fridge around 12 degrees Celsius, because you can either keep red and white wine, let's say. And then in my opinion, I rather drink the champagne not too fresh because as well, freshness will have the tendency to close a bit the aromas.
Yeah, so in Fahrenheit, 12 Celsius is 53 Fahrenheit. And whenever we're tasting wine, we always, so if we're judging this for looking for complexity, looking for maybe even flaws at times, looking for what we like, what we don't like, we always drink it a little bit warm. So when wine or champagne's too cold, like Maureen was just saying, it's closed off. It's just, the aromas can't open if it's too cold. So Sonia, if you're at home and you open a bottle and then you're waiting to drink the rest of it, you want to put in, Maureen, is it 1/3 ice and 2/3 water in a carafe to chill it?
Yes, it is. Yes, you can do this. You can have sometimes socks, you know, ice socks, ice bag around the, I know that we're using quite a lot here.
Kind of like an insulated piece that we do on beer usually. You can do that on wine and kind of insulate it and cool it. But it's important that you don't let it get too hot, but it's also really important that it's not too cold. Sometimes when wine's served to us at a restaurant, I'll feel it and it's a red even, and I'm like, this is too cold. I don't like it because it's too cold, and you just need to wait a little bit for that to heat up. So you kind of need to tell your server that at times. Like,
totally.
Hey, this white's too cold, or I want this a little bit warmer.
I know that
like ice and sauce. I don't know what the U.S. name is. What's the American name for? Oh, a cozy. We call it a cozy. The sauce.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. In France, we say socks. I don't know.
It's so cute. It's cute though.
So I'm about to open the bottle of champagne. Maybe a quick advice that I always do. I keep the muselet, the wire around. It will create a grip to hold the cork. Always keep your thumb, please, on the bottle because the cork, it's under pressure. It goes very fast. Yeah. Do not lose your eye, please. Yeah. And then I will twist the bottom of my bottle on the opposite side, then the top. This way it will help me to open the bottle.
Woo!
Yeah. Hopla. So problem with changing temperature is sometimes when you open a bottle of champagne, you will have some sprays out. It happens, but it doesn't mark any problem on the wine.
Yeah. I love that you can see behind you also, like the tile in your house. It's like the traditional way that homes were built in Champagne, right?
Yes, it is. More specifically in the Mont Valley terroir, which is those typical Meulière rock. And here in La Côte des Blancs, we build house with chalk directly.
Yeah, so what's so cool is her house is built with chalk. The vine's roots are actually penetrating a rock of chalk to go into to grow. And then what we drink is like calcium, magnesium, all of those benefits of minerals that are actually supposed to be really good for our health. So in famous champagne quotes, people say drink champagne every day because it's actually good for your health. And the reason behind that is because of the minerality. I think it's also crazy in France. I don't know if you've ever seen those like granions that you can break open that are vitamins and minerals, and you can actually press them into your skin for skincare. My sister and I do that. So like calcium, magnesium, we press those into our face because those minerals are known to be really good for our body. And that's exactly what champagne is growing in and what your house is made of.
Yes, it is. Yes. Like clay, it's very well known in cosmetic.
Yeah. Okay, so show us your bottle, the shape, what it looks like. So Crystal's like, so champagne is technically a health drink. Good to know.
Yes, it is.
It's like taking a vitamin. You should drink it every day. You should pour it into your bath. You should bathe in it. And no, there's all this research and tons of quotes about that. But look how beautiful this bottle shape is. So kind of like when we talked about the glass, so being bulbous and thicker in the center of the diameter, you can have a bottle that's shaped in multiple different ways. Hey, Jackie. But look at how like bulbous her bottle is in the center. It's like a very elegant shaped bottle that they decided to use.
So when we began to produce wine, it was back in 2014 from ourselves, because before it was through the corporation. So we had to choose our very first bottle of champagne. And so we go for this one because we think it's very nice. The problem is that it's very hard to label. So we have to basically label it by hand because our machine can't stick because it goes like this. It's not straight.
My God, that's so crazy.
Yes, it is.
Well, I love it. I feel like it's worth it. Wait, so Sonia said, oh no, yeah, she said it looks like it could help the immune system during quarantine.
I wish. So for the label of
Monica,
champagne,
not Sonia. Hey, Monica. Okay.
so this is our cellars actually. It looks like this basically, and so we wanted to have it on our label. We call this very first bottle La Première, and then it will change for the name of Oger because this cuvée will always be here years after years and represent different vines that we have from Oger. The purpose is to express our terroir, our village taste.
Yeah, so what I want you to explain is a little bit more about the prehistoric sea that was in Champagne millions of years ago. And the reason why your Champagne is so special is that you're in these Grand Cru villages, and the law doesn't tell you that you have to age these 5 years, right? Explain how many months that you're allowed to sell these at and why you choose to wait 5 years. Because I think that's so special for people to know that you're in the best village, you have the best product to make wine out of, and you're aging it for so much longer. So it's going to be a more golden product. It's going to have more mature notes. It's going to be something you can like have at the end of the meal. You can like smoke a cigar with, like so much more complexity that we really are calling a wine when you're aging it 5 years before you're selling it.
Yes, totally. So I have with me a little map of the Champagne region. Maybe it will be too tiny for you, but it might be nice to
cool.
see different terroir of Champagne, different colors. Here we are in the yellow zone, and actually this shape you have here, it's basically right in front of me. So it's what we call the slopes. And this slopes is not straight, it goes like this with lots of reliefs and everything, and then it goes in the flats. And so from the bottom of the slopes to the flats, of course, the source is different. So even on the short village like our, with only 500 inhabitants, you have different zones and so different taste. So back in 70 million years ago, here it was a sea. And so when the sea took out, of course, it took a million years. It left behind a lot of fossils and shells. And so that chalk, which is basically agglomerations of fossils, actually.
Yeah. So like the moment life goes back to normal, I'm going on a tour of Champagne with you. And you're coming to meet Marine. Yep.
Yeah.
Do it.
This is basically where we are organizing tasting when you come to visit me.
Yeah, I love it. So explain to us how your terroir in Oger and Mesnil, what that usually gives us in terms of flavors and how it's different maybe to Clément, or how it's different in the expression of Chardonnay to Aviz. Because I think what's so interesting for all of us to learn is that so the entire area around Marine is Chardonnay. It's where 100% Chardonnay is grown because it's Grand Cru Chardonnay, part of these 17 villages that are the best villages among 300 to grow wine in Champagne. But each of those villages grows Chardonnay, but the expression of Chardonnay in Oger versus Mesnil versus Clément is like night and day different. So from like pointed acidity to much rounder, like creamier expression of Chardonnay to like a Chardonnay that you could age a lot longer. Actually, when you get experience with this, you can go and you can taste the grape on the vine in each of those villages and taste a difference in the complexity of the grape and how it's going to change the wine. So will you explain what does Oger give to the wine? What does Mesnil and what does maybe Clément or Aviz give?
Okay, so the slope I told you about goes a bit, let's say like this. And so the village of Oger has the particularity to be in a vale. So we have expression more on maturity directly, more specifically when it's very warm, because the warmth will stay in the vale. Compared to Le Mesnil-sur-Oger, to give you an idea, it's only 2 kilometers driving from here. and it's more in advance compared to the big slopes. We are a bit back, and so it's more windy. So in terms of expression, we have way more fresh in Le Mesnil-sur-Oger.
So we
and
instead of acidity, but because it's
yes.
cooler, it's fresher there. So there's more structure maybe in our palate in Mesnil-sur-Oger other than Oger because of that wind.
Yes, totally, because of it, because as well of the position of the village though, and Oger, when you have warm years like we had those back few years, we go directly, let's say more quicker, and then Le Mesnil on some aromas more mature in terms of Chardonnay's aromas wheels, let's say.
Yeah.
So, for example, here I have a 2014 Champagne, so La Première, our very first one. It's only vines from Oger, very old vines, because we had only old vines on historical plants. And here, when I'm smelling it, for me, it smells very much comfit, apricot, peachy aromas.
So mature. Like mature fruit because it's had so long to age.
Yes, it is. Yes. And also because it's Oger, it has this particularity. But then here it's interesting because when you drink it, on the aftertaste, it's quite long. And in Merv, you have more nutsy aromas like almond, for example. And then the sapidity comes after on the aftertaste.
Right.
And so I like it because it's very much balanced on that you have in the end, but the structure and the complexity you have to begin. Yes.
So are you also making 100% Mesnil-sur-Oger that's a little bit fresher and brighter?
It is. So in Le Mesnil-sur-Oger, we have two different plots, quite separated, that we love when we can, when we don't have too much of late frost, for example, to be able to fill a press roof. Separate those two plots to create what we called single vineyard champagne, parcellaire champagne. Cool. We made it back in 2018. For the moment, we bottled it last September. And this last harvest, 2019, we didn't have enough to fill up 2 presses from both. So we had to blend it directly at the press to create 100% from Le Mesnil. And so we tasted it already as still wine, and it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's so cool is that she's talking about 100% Chardonnay champagne, 2 separate 100% Chardonnay champagnes from different villages that just because of the geology of the soil, the exposition to the sun, the experience with wind and sunlight and clouds and where the forest is, she's seeing a totally different expression in 100% Chardonnay champagne. So you can buy her 2 different expressions and taste them and see how they're different. What also is so cool is that this is Marine's first ever production of champagne. So before, all of their champagne was sent to a cooperative. So that would be like me, Ashley, Crystal, Nat, Sonia, Jess, all getting together and owning land and saying, you know what? I don't want to deal with the marketing. I'm scared to do the bottle production. I don't know how to sell it. Let's all get together and make 1 bottle. So before her is your boyfriend or your husband? Your husband?
Boyfriend for the
boyfriend. So your boyfriend's family was like, let's just all get together as a cooperative and let's sell it together. It's way easier. And that's what they were doing. And in the last couple of years, her boyfriend separated away and has said, you know what, we can actually make our own. Let's make our own. Let's make it biodynamic. Let's farm the right way. Let's get that certificate eventually. And let's show Grand Cru Chardonnay from 2 separate villages. So it's super, super cool. I'm so excited for everyone to try it. I'm getting it shipped here in the next 2 weeks. And I can't wait to have it here. But let's go through a little bit more of questions. So we talked about the terroir of the different villages. What else did I want to ask you? What's like which champagne do you usually bring to certain events? Like if you're just going over to a friend's house and you're like, you know what, or it's like a casual picnic, like what level of champagne do you bring? And also will you teach people maybe about steering away from too much complexity and like what you would bring to like a wedding?
To begin with, because champagne is quite a hard wine maybe to understand to begin. It's bubbly. Sometimes it might feel too acidic. So it's nice for you to picture a bit the taste of the whole region, to go with a blending. So a champagne from different years and maybe different types of grapes together, to have something more fruity, maybe more easy to drink. So I'll go for this to begin. And then after, yeah, looking for more structure a bit. So
Yeah.
I'll go for long aging, but
Okay.
that's my
So
opinion.
you start with something that's a blend because the blends have that structure, the fruitiness, and the brightness because maybe they're that mix of Chardonnay, Pinot Meunier, and Pinot Noir. So it's easy. Maybe it's 33% of each one. It's fun. It's easy to start with. And then you'll go into something by a certain village or it's 100% of a certain.
I'm reading the questions here. Maybe we can answer to pairing champagne with food. So again, like with wine, it will depend which type of champagne you will choose to go with. But let's say the big rules, which is fine for every type of champagne, it's to pair with cheese, for example, cheeses. Goat cheese, for example, goes with all kinds of champagne. It goes very well as well with a light dessert, with some fruit, for example. And then after, if you go for vintages, a bit more structure, more smoky, depending on how it's been vinificated, you can even have fun and blend it with chocolate, for example, which is a bit unexpected, let's say, but it goes very well with. All the type of plates with fishes goes very well with champagne as well.
So like oysters, shrimp.
Yes, yeah. Especially with our type of blanc de blanc, because of the sapidity you have in the end, that sea chalk, sea salt, yes, we have in our type of champagne. It goes very well with seafoods. Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like we usually say champagne is pretty fragile, so don't pair it with anything that's going to completely overpower it, like a blue cheese or like a roquefort. Like that would be so strong it would overpower the bubble. And maybe not with like a super strong like red wine sauce, but something like creamy, like a tarragon chicken or oysters is amazing with champagne. French fries, even that like fattiness, like anything that's kind of fatty like that the freshness and the brightness of champagne can kind of cut through. Like even like tempura with Japanese food or sushi. Like I feel like champagne goes really, really well with Japanese food.
Yes, I agree with this as well. There's they have their umami feeling that we kind of don't understand here in the West, let's say, but it goes very well with the minerality of champagne. Yes.
Yeah, and then Jess asked, how do you decide to have champagne versus a bottle of still white wine? So why are you going to pick champagne versus a Chablis versus a Sancerre versus like a white Burgundy?
Yeah, it depends. For me, I will have both each time, but it depends. What I like with bubble is as well to begin. For example, it tickles the senses. It wakes up a bit the palate to begin a tasting. It's interesting. So it might be for a beginning. Then after, it can be a lighter as well. Sometimes with Burgundy wine, you have a bit too much of wood expression, for example. And with Loire Valley wine, it's very, very on the flower, something very exotic, lychee notes, and sometimes it's a bit too much. So champagne can have as well a role of lightening, let's say.
Yeah, but I think that's a good point. What we always do in France is we have this apéritif hour where like people come over, and in the US we call it cocktail hour. but I feel like we're not as serious about it as we are in France. Like an aperitif or an apéro is like, you always start like that. You have a little like salty things, or you have little canapes, and that is the moment where you either have champagne, or maybe you'll have, in France, it's very typical too to have a martini blanc. And
Yes.
you know, so you'll start with that, and you always should start with bubbles. You should never have red wine and then have bubbles, because it's too powerful. So start with bubbles if you're doing multiple things. But if you're having a dinner party, prepare a champagne and prepare a white, and serve the white at dinner and start with the champagne. I think that's like a perfect answer for you, Jess. Crystal said, I'm salivating. I'd murder for moule frite right now and champagne. Moule frite. That's so cute. Like creamy moule frite that's like done with like a really, so those are mussels and french fries. And when that's done with like a sauce that you've taken a long time to build flavor in, and pairing that with a fresh champagne, like marine champagne, that also sounds amazing. And it's also not expensive. Like mussels are cheap.
No. Yeah, totally. It's very easy to cook as well.
Yeah. And then Sonia said, is there a good way to identify a champagne that's not good? Just like a wine can be corked, can champagne go bad?
Yes. Yes, it could be. I will never go, for example, for a champagne in I don't know, Tesco or big supermarkets, because it would be voluming production, and you, in my opinion, you can't very much do industrial size and very good quality, or you will have to go high on range, for example. I'm thinking of big brands, for example.
Yeah.
As well, but it's something more delicate to know. But behind every French, so there's only champagne, which is French, but let's say French champagne for an American. Behind you have a tiny code. I don't know if you guys can see, but here it's RM. It's initials, which will give you indication about how it's been produced. So it's, for example, just grapes by a person, and not gonna make it, but just he's buying, let's say, I'm sorry for the explanation, it goes bad. Let's go back. Let's say a producers will only wants to sell a type of brand. So he will buy a bottle of champagne already finished that he never made, let's say, but it's already been done, and he will stick a certain label on, and so this will be called MA, like, and this goes most of the time in supermarkets.
Right. So people should look for, in the States, we call it estate grown, Sonia. So like, when they own 100% of the land, and they only use grapes that they've farmed to make their product. It's called a récoltant manipulant, and it's a teeny RM at the base of the bottle that you look for. What Marine's talking about otherwise is a négociant. So in English, we say like a negotiator. That's like when a big house gets together and calls Marine and says, hey, I want to buy your grapes. Listen, you're in the best village in all of Champagne. You have best terroir. Sell me your grapes, and I'm going to add that to my blend so I can make millions of bottles. There's over 300 million bottles of champagne produced every year in Champagne. So these négociants like Moet, like Veuve Clicquot, like Taittinger, they just call all these little growers families, and they want them to sell from them, especially in Grand Cru. They'll pay the highest amount. But then they're a negotiator. Like, they didn't farm that soil. They didn't, you know, elaborate. They didn't prune. They didn't take all of that time to make a great grape to put into. They just kind of take the benefits of their labor, and they put together mass scale champagne. So this is why we drink grower champagne. This is why we buy from Marine, and why this movement is so important, because it's going against these giant corporations that even add like enzymes and clarifying agents, because they're making 1 million bottles. They have to almost like bleach the product to a certain extent, just clarify it so much, and then kind of adjust it. Whereas a small grower like Marine, she just takes exactly what she makes. She allows it to express itself, and she's able to just show that expression every year. as a product of how beautiful it is. So if you can find RM, I sell it. I sell marine champagne. And Crystal's like, we're never drinking Veuve Clicquot again. Good to know. I mean, the only
Not what I said.
that is very true. And the thing is, like, Veuve Clicquot buys maybe some from Marine. Like, they buy from these guys. So you're drinking her vines maybe, or some of her neighbors' vines, but you're just paying for the marketing and the branding. So Veuve Clicquot, they do though. She's a widow, and she was a very strong lady that was widowed in the 1800s and brought that brand to what it is today. So like for us, like her and Madame Pommery are these just like badass, you know, women that were so strong and so inspired.
Yes,
I feel like both of us. But yeah, say it again.
They totally build the champagne. Those big brands used to be huge families.
Yeah.
And they bring the champagne where we are right now. So
yeah.
I will never say that it's bad champagne. I just say that it's different. How they make it, it's millions of bottles. And here, this is only a production of 1,500 bottles. So of course I can take more time. I do not add, of course, additives and all those flitch, as you said. But it's a different ways to produce. It's like with farming with vegetables. It's totally a different scale. So it's not bad. Just mainstream. It's for a larger audience.
And if you have access, I mean, I lived in Champagne back and forth for 8 years, but it's like if I have access to Marine's bottles, I would way rather buy her champagne than ever buy Veuve, because I'll also pay like double or triple the price for Veuve. So that's why we always buy grower champagne. Oh, the interesting thing too that we should do together is when you pour and when you cheers. In France, we say santé, bonheur. So it's like health and to happiness. So santé, bonheur. So I feel like for now, those things are really important. And those are like two things we don't think about. But I mean, what's more important in our life than like our health and our happiness, especially with like what we're all going through right now. But explain a little bit more about your brand and what we should taste. And I would love for everyone to try it. I'll have it in the US in the next 2 weeks. So I'll be selling it from here. We always ship cave to door. So we literally take it from the cave, aging in the cellars from France, straight to your door. I think that's so important because I feel like you don't know where it's aging otherwise. You don't know where it's stored. And if it's stored in chalk caves that have the right humidity and temperature, and it's coming from Marine straight to you, I love that for quality. So we'll have that in the next 2 weeks. Crystal said, so in Italy, you see DOC bottles, which I guess authenticates the region. So what's the equivalent for that in Champagne? Yeah, Marine, that's cool. Will you explain that?
Totally. So in Italy, of course, I have to recommend good wine, always chasing for DOC and even better DOJC. So you sure that it comes from a special place. Here in France, we've been a bit further by creating those appellations. So Champagne's region, it's an appellation zones. The map I show you, the white part, you can't even plant vines. You can't even make the champagnes from vines. It's forbidden. And so inside those appellations region, which is Burgundy, Champagne, Alsace, Loire Valley, Bordeaux, etc., you have classifications of these appellations, which are the premier cru, the grand cru. So you have different scale, let's say. So it's kind of the same thing, but we've been a bit further in France, let's say. Well,
yeah. So in France, it's called AOC, right? So Appellation Originelle Contrôlée. So I think the coolest thing that we don't have in the States really is that there's this board in Champagne that says, hey, you don't need to recreate the wheel. We've been doing this for 200-300 years. Like, this is how many feet of the vine you're going to plant per acre. You can try and plant double that amount, but you're not going to make better quality champagne. So plant 10,000 per acre. This is how far apart they should be. This is when you should start picking. This is how much you can pick. Because if we saturate the market with champagne, all the prices are going to plummet, which for us as the consumer is amazing because we'll pay less for it. But like that was a perfect situation of like what happened in Australia. They like oversupplied the entire market, and then the prices plummeted and they couldn't sell what they were making. So like there's this board that says, hey, we're going to give you a blueprint of how you're going to make a good quality product. You know, it's not quite as capitalistic as I feel like it is in America. We're like, no, I want to do this. If this is how much I can grow, this is how much I'm selling. But it works and it creates a beautiful product. So they actually, Maureen, explain how you send a couple samples every year to the AOC. And if they come back and say, you know what, this tastes like vinegar, or like your bubble's off, there's no bubble, or you're doing a bad job in something, you lose that AOC designation and you can only call it like table sparkling. Like, can you even call it champagne at that point if you don't meet the AOC guideline?
No, so of course no one's playing that game, but we have to send samples of the bottle we just bottled, not even released, and so we have to keep those samples bottled, sealed and labeled up to the end of the commercialization happened. So for example, I have sampled sealed bottle of this one since 15 up to I will have no stock of it. And so yes, they control everything like you said. We had an interesting question from Chris about the scale of champagne classification. So here it's simple. In this region you have 320 villages with the appellations on. There's on the month you have 41 villages with the Premier Cru designations on. It will be precise on the bottle if it is, and up to it you have only 17 Grand Cru villages, and it will be also precise. When it comes to other wine region in France, and this is where it gets complicated, is that every wine region in France, it's kind of independent from one to another, and they have its own rules because different history, etc., etc. And the most difficult one to understand is the border region, because it's not by zone like in Champagne, but by chateau, so by property. And it's very hard.
Do you ever how do you feel about the AOC? Like, does it ever frustrate you that you're under this regulation, or do you appreciate it?
No, of course I appreciate it because it protects our products. The history of the appellation is not that old as a French point of view. It's not even a century old. Yeah. Voted back in 1937 for champagne, and so it's been protected, our champagne, in the world as well, making champagne products only able to be produced in our region actually. And of course it protects the quality of what we produce because of all the controls we have. So I'm 100% for it, of course.
Yeah, that's so cool. I feel like Americans at times look at any sort of control, like even the stay-at-home order is like, you've seen these people protesting and going to the state capitol, and then those people that are protesting getting COVID. But at times, any limitation or restriction on us, we push against. But in France, they look at it at times as like, we've been doing this for 300 years. You know best with winemaking that you're going to help us make a better quality product. So we appreciate it. Monica said, can we order your champagne in other countries like the UK? So I can ship to the UK. We can definitely, Maureen can ship to the UK. We can get bottles to the UK. London traditionally has always been one of the biggest countries that drinks the most champagne.
Yes.
They love it. The Brits love sparkling. And then Crystal asked, what's the order from lowest to Grand Cru? So of the 300 villages, what's like the order of like Cru, Premier Cru, Grand Cru?
Yes, it's just what I explained. So there's only 2 scales in Champagne. There's 42 villages with the Premier Cru designation on, and 17 about the Grand Cru. And so all the other villages has no designation, but they are, of course, in the appellation of Champagne. And of course, you can find very good champagne from that zones too. It comes with the rules of the appellation, though.
So can you taste a difference between a cru terroir that doesn't necessarily have the best chalk, doesn't have the best terroir, like doesn't have the best exposition of the sun? Can you taste a difference between that and Grand Cru when you're drinking?